Tingles with flyby. Hello my tinglings. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make one of my favorite cakes. It's not chocolate. This is a really lovely lemon lime cake, and so I'm going to show you the method that we'll use. So what I have here, I've baked. These are just little small, you can see compared to my hand. They're just little mini cakes because I am not wanting to be excessive, and I have Christmas coming up, obviously, so we'll want to be making other different treats as well. So I have these little mini cakes. So this is just a normal yellow cake in here. You could just, this is 1/3 of a recipe of a normal like 9x13 pan. So I've just put that into 2 little rounds. So the first step after you've cooked the cake, these have cooled as well, is you're going to take something like, you can do it with a fork, but it's usually best to do it with something like this, is you're going to go in and poke around and make little holes. Because what we're going to do is we're going to end up putting green lime jello mix into here. And so we'll do lime jello mix and then let that set, and then you put lemon pudding on top, and it's so delicious. So I'll show you all the steps. So you kind of scatter these about. The point of these is to be points where the jelly can, or jello can seep into the cake, so you get places where it gets really strong and can go all the way to the bottom. And so again, if you don't have these pieces, then it'll all just come to the sides and stay around the sides. So you just do that. This cake I probably overcooked just a little bit. Do some out, kind of in an extra, slightly out from my last circle there. I always like to make plenty of holes, but you want your cake to still kind of hold together as well. So I insert, kind of move around just to make the hole a little bit bigger. Like so. So let's work on our second cake. See this color a little bit more golden rather than, this one's a bit more brownish. This is the color I prefer. I've never made them in this mini cake shape before, so the top's cracked. I'm not quite sure why. This same concept of cake you can use. There's another one, I'm not sure if I've made it or I just had the idea for it. I do want to make it at some point. Is a chocolate cake with raspberry jello, and then that one would just have like a whipped cream, or yeah, probably just a whipped cream topping with some fresh raspberries. Sounds good. So now our cakes have a nice bit of holes in them. So we're ready now to prepare the jelly so we can, or jello, they call it jelly here. So that's kind of why I'm saying jelly or jello, but it's jello. It's jello, but it's called jelly. So we'll prepare the gelatin to put in here now. So I've got my 2 waters that I need. This is mine, just came off the stove. It's boiling. And this is obviously ice water. So this is the jello or gelatin that I'm using. Aeroplane is the brand that is most popular here. And you can see flavored jelly. That's what they call it. So I'm going to just put this straight into a pitcher here, just a jug, because that'll be the easiest way to then pour it into the cake pans. So I won't end up using all of the jello because I'm just going to set that to the side because it's more than I need, but I'll still mix it up because we may as well. So first goes in the hot water. And I have a spoon to mix it, but I figure I'll try and swirl it around. It's supposed to just mix it until it's all dissolved. So I'll just let it sit still. Yeah, it's not quite dissolving there. So you just need to use cold water, but if you use ice water, it does make it go faster. It'll help it set faster. It's still quite granular. I feel like it's actually going better. Going like this. We'll swirl it the other way. It's still quite warm. Just want to make sure it's still warm enough. The only problem with this is we get that little bit right in the middle. enough though. So this one will need to wait for the ice cubes to melt. Which, as you can see, shouldn't be too long. There's only a few still left in there. Boiling water is a great destroyer of ice cubes. There we go. Much cooler. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we'll start pouring into the holes in the cake. You want to go a little slow because you don't want to overfill. You don't want it to all, you see how it starts seeping down to there? You want to try and let it seep down into the hole. This one's a little, it's because it's got this really sloped shape. It's not, like, I mean, you're going to get some, if it goes around to the edge, the edges are going to be the most it starts to soak in. Dry use there. So normally I would use just one box for an entire cake. I'll probably end up using a bit more on a ratio on this one just because I have it here. But I think it's normally a pretty good ratio, like that. You can hear little bubbles. I've still got a bit there, so I'll probably try and aim for about half of it to be used. And it should just soak in really nicely to the cake. Just give this one a little bit more. Okay. Hopefully I haven't overfilled that. Just give this one a little more. And then you just need to pop these into the fridge to allow the jello to set. And we move on to, and then we'll move on to our last step, which is making the lemon pudding. So for this pudding, I'm going to make it from scratch, but you can just use any lemon pudding. So this recipe, first you put in 3/4 cup of sugar. So I have my 1/4 cup measure here. 1, 2, and 3/4 cup of sugar. Now the next part is a 1/2 cup of flour. You can also make it with cornstarch, and then it's only 1/4 cup. I usually have flour always around and cornstarch sometimes, so I usually just use flour. I think it's a little bit smoother with cornstarch, but it still tastes really good when you do it with flour. So it's a 1/2 cup of flour. If you did it with cornstarch, it's 1/4 cup of cornstarch. So once you've got the flour and the sugar in the pan, then you just want to mix those together. So I'm using a whisk here because it's going to be used later as well, but you could really, just you could sift it together with the sifter as you're putting it in, or whatever you want to do like that, but I just like to use the whisk to put it in. Once it's all combined there, then you're going to put in some milk, and it's 2.5 cups of milk. So I've just got a 1/2 cup measure here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 1/2 cups. So 2.5 cups of milk. And then you go ahead and whisk that in and just try and get it until it's smooth, which can take a little while. But once it's all smooth, then should be pretty good to move on to the next step, which is adding in some lemon zest. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. I usually just zest about 2 lemons because getting a precise measurement on zest is a little bit of a pain. So usually 2 lemons is about good. To zest my lemon here, I'm using a cheese grater. If you have a zester, they're amazing. I had one when I lived in the US, but don't have one now, so I use just this grater, which works okay, but takes longer than a zester. If you have a zester, I highly recommend it. So, it takes a while. Zesting, it's a little bit of a process. So I'll zest 2 lemons, and then I just need to go ahead and put it in the pot. I actually really like this grater. You can see it has this bottom section that collects everything so that you don't have to grate on top of a plate. And so it all collects just within the grater itself, and then you just empty out the grater, and that's all you have to do. So there's the lemon zest. It's getting all over my hand, stuck everywhere, but that's all good. Gives it that lemony, yummy goodness. So good. Lemon zest, orange zest really does add quite a bit. Next we add in some egg yolks, so it's 3 egg yolks. The easiest way to actually separate eggs is using their own shell, because there's some property within the shell, I don't remember what it is, that makes it very good for separating it out. Now this recipe doesn't call for anything with egg whites, but I'm reserving them because I'm going to be making some icing for gingerbread houses. And royal icing takes egg whites, so I'm not quite sure how many I'll need, but I'll have 3 from here. So we have 2 egg yolks in there, and just open up this last one and get that all put in, separated, always avoiding getting any eggshell in. And then a nice little pinch of salt. So that's everything that needs to go into the pot before we cook it. But I also like to prepare the lemon juice beforehand, just so it'll be all ready, because when you take it off the heat, you'll put the lemon juice in. So I have a little citrus juicer here, little manual one. Just kind of massage it across the top, and it releases the juices. You're trying to break open the little pulpy sections, and that'll release the juice out. That's what we're really going for with that. It can take a little bit of manipulation, and sometimes it needs a little bit more of a cut there to really open it up. And then you can just massage it on there and get way up into that top area. So we need a 1/2 cup of fresh lemon juice for this. I've got some from this, but I'll juice the 2 lemons. Again, I'm not super precise on this measurement. It ends up being about a 1/2 cup, a little bit less, but it's okay. So after I've juiced the lemons, I like to start my measuring cup so I have an idea of how much I've got. And then I put my finger across the lip there to prevent the seeds from going in. It blocks a little bit of pulp as well. I'm not really too concerned about the pulp, it's more the seeds. So I'll do that for both lemons so that I have a 1/2 cup of lemon juice, which will be ready for after we cook the pudding. So we'll go ahead and put the pudding onto the stove, and obviously we're going to want to mix that in as well. It goes onto a medium heat for this, so I've got it on about a 3 temperature. And just going to mix in the egg yolks and the salt and everything to make sure it's all combined. As it's cooking, you want to continue stirring it and whisking it. And you can see we've got it now to a nice thick consistency. It takes a while. But when it gets to this kind of thick, creamy consistency, it's called coating the back of a spoon, but I just go for a pretty thick consistency. Then you can take it off the heat, and then you put in the lemon juice and go ahead and mix that in. After you've mixed the lemon juice in, you are going to let it cool to room temperature, so we're not putting it in the fridge yet. And so I usually just leave it on a burner on the stove that's not on and let that cool for probably 20 to 30 minutes. But you can see it's got a nice smooth consistency. It's really, I love this pudding. This is a lot more than I need for the cakes, so I'll put some extra in bowls just as a dessert on its own. So we'll let that cool down to room temperature so that then we can put it on the cakes. So now that it's cooled down a bit, you bring it over. You can see it's a little bit thicker. It's thickening up. And I'll just spoon it onto the top of the cakes. I do this as a nice, really thick layer. It's not like a thin icing. I love just a thick layer of homemade pudding on top. It's so yummy. So just use as much as you want. It's delicious. But once it's got all that we want on there, just scoop it up, and then we'll go ahead and put it into the fridge. I'll leave it in the fridge usually overnight. If you're making it in the day, then probably at least 4 hours. But yeah, just pop those in and then leave them overnight. So these have just sat overnight. You can see the pudding has set. So we're going to go ahead and pop one out. See the jelly on the side here. I'm not sure it wants to actually come off. So, we have our cake there. Oh, it smells so delicious. It's got a strong lime and lemon smell. So I was just going to cut it open to show you what it looks like in the middle. So you can see you get these, that's where we did the holes. You can see you get the bits of lime, jello seeping through those holes. That'll be all throughout where we have all the different holes. So you could do more holes if you wanted to have a bit more drippage going through. But that is our cake. It's very delicious, very lovely, and I think I'm ready to dig in. So let me know if you do try out this cake. I highly recommend it. It's so good. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye, my tinglings. Thanks for watching this video.